I was the girl he loved in secret, until he said loving me was just revenge. So I vanished. No tears. No warnings. Just silence. When he tried to come back, I wasn't waiting. I was married, to a man the world feared, but who only ever protected one thing. There's a kind of silence that feels worse than betrayal. It's the moment right after you hear the truth, and your heart hasn't caught up yet. It's the breath you take when you want to scream but dignity won't let you. That's the silence I sat in the night I discovered Rafe Cavendish never loved me. Not really. Not the way he said he did, whispering I was his reason in the dark. That night I watched a video of him on someone's phone. Blurry, grainy, real enough to wreck me. He was sitting in a leather club chair, arms spread wide, a smirk on his face like he'd just played God. Yeah, she's in deep, he said, chuckling. Pathetic how fast they fall. But it's not about her, is it? It's about payback. Her brother burned us 5 years ago. She's just the pretty piece I'll use to set the whole Astor family on fire. The person holding the camera laughed. You're a savage. No. I'm just patient. Once I get her under me and under my name, I'll walk. Let them watch their princess crash. I paused the video. My fingers didn't shake. My chest didn't rise. I just sat there in my cream silk robe, my engagement nails still perfect, the Cartier bracelet he gave me sparkling like it wasn't a symbol of my own stupidity. 3 years. 3 years of secrets. Of sneaking into his arms when the world slept. Of believing I was his exception. I wasn't even his strategy. I was just leverage. Collateral damage in a war between Rafe Cavendish and my brother. Julian Astor, future Prime Minister, the golden boy, the man who'd destroyed Rafe's father in court during a corruption scandal. I was supposed to be Julian's good girl. Quiet. Loyal. Obedient. Instead, I loved his enemy. And his enemy played me like a fiddle. I didn't wait for Rafe's call. I didn't demand an explanation. What was there to say? I packed a single suitcase. A black coat, 5 dresses, nothing sentimental. Then I picked up the envelope I'd been pretending didn't exist for 2 years. My family's proposed engagement to Selim Blackwood. Arranged. Political. Stone cold. He was one of the youngest tech tycoons in Europe. Born in the snow of Switzerland, raised in the halls of silence. His name was associated with defense technology, privacy infrastructure, and rumor said he never smiled unless something exploded. He'd proposed a merger through my brother 2 years ago. Julian said it was too corporate. I said I was in love with someone else. No. I was neither corporate nor in love. I was ready. Selim Blackwood didn't look surprised when I walked into his Milan office. He just looked up from his screen, black-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose, and said, "You're 4 days earlier than expected." I dropped the envelope on his desk. "I'm ready to get married." He didn't ask why. He didn't offer condolences. He just said, "We sign tomorrow. I'll handle the details." "You're not going to ask me what changed?" "No." "Why?" He set down his pen and looked up fully for the first time. Dark eyes. Stone face. Voice like chilled marble. "Because I don't need your past, Lena. I just need your silence." My breath caught. Not because it was cruel. Because it was freeing. We married in Vienna. No press. No family. No vows. Just contracts. A cold chapel lit with silver candlesticks. His hand resting over mine for the signature photo. The only time he touched me that day. He didn't kiss me. Didn't even look like he wanted to. But as we walked out of the chapel, he leaned in slightly and whispered, "You have 2 rules. Don't lie. And don't fall in love with me." I smiled bitterly. That's the one thing I can promise you. His house, no, his fortress, was in the hills above Lake Geneva. A minimalist mansion with glass walls and silence thick enough to crush you. "Your room is west-facing," he said, opening the door with a biometric scan. "I prefer solitude." "Don't worry," I murmured. "I'm allergic to men right now." A ghost of a smirk. Gone in an instant. "You'll find me predictable then." The first few days passed like I was floating in ether. I signed a dozen NDAs. His assistant, a terrifying woman named Margot with stilettos sharper than her cheekbones, handed me a new wardrobe and a list of official appearances. "You're a Blackwood now," she said briskly. "And he doesn't like scandal." "Neither do I," I replied. "Then we'll get along." I didn't cry. I didn't mourn. I just studied. Studied the way Selim moved through rooms without announcing himself. How he wore silence like armor but never looked awkward in it. How people deferred to him without him ever raising his voice. He didn't try to control me. But I was never unaware of his power. One night I walked into the library and found him sitting with a single glass of scotch, staring at the lake through bulletproof glass. "Why did you marry me?" I asked. He didn't look over. "Because I don't believe in distractions." "I'm a distraction?" He turned then. Slowly. Deliberately. "No. You're the last piece on the board. And I'd rather have you on my side than anyone else's." "That's not romantic," I said dryly. "Good," he replied. "I'm not here to romance you." I raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you here for?" He leaned back, the amber liquid catching fire in the light. "To win." The first gift he gave me wasn't jewelry. It was access. Full accounts. Shared passwords. Control of 2 of his international holding companies. "No prenup?" I asked, stunned. He sipped his drink. "I don't believe in cages. If you want to ruin me, do it with style. You're out of your mind. You're still here." Touché. Meanwhile, Rafe was unraveling. It started with gossip. A bar fight. A drunken quote about how they always leave for money. Then the internet did what it does best. Dig. The video leaked. The real one. The one where he planned to use me. Public opinion turned on him like wolves. Rafe Cavendish used Lena Astor as a pawn in a revenge plot? Disgusting. He played the wrong heiress. She left and married Selim Blackwood? Oh, that man is going to end him. I didn't say a word. Not on Instagram. Not to the press. Not to my brother. Not even to Selim. But when I saw that video reposted on a gossip forum with over 2 million views, I poured a glass of wine, sat in our soundproof kitchen and watched it 3 times. Then I deleted every single photo I had of Rafe Cavendish. Burned the rest in the garden fire pit. And when Selim came home, he didn't ask about the ashes. He just wrapped his coat around my shoulders and poured me another glass. He didn't say, "You okay?" He didn't say, "Talk to me." He just existed beside me. Thought. Unmoved. Safe. Cashin Thorne once told me love was a wildfire. It wasn't. It was smoke. Blinding. All-consuming. Deadly. And Selim? Selim was the first time I didn't feel like I was choking. I once read that the most dangerous people in the world weren't the ones who screamed when hurt. They were the ones who whispered, "Watch." Selim Blackwood had that whisper in his eyes. Even in silence, he made you feel like something important was about to happen, or something catastrophic. And the longer I lived in his house, the more I realized. I wasn't the only one pretending this marriage was just a transaction. Our arrangement was signed in a 20-page contract. No romantic entanglements required. No obligations beyond mutual loyalty and strategic presence. I didn't even need to sleep in the same wing. But it didn't say we couldn't. And one night I stayed too late in the drawing room, reading reports from the joint foundation he'd given me control over. Somewhere between glass 2 and 3 of Amarone I fell asleep. When I woke up I was in bed. My own room, yes. But tucked in. Blankets drawn up neatly. My shoes placed by the door. A tray of water and painkillers on the bedside. I checked the cameras later. Selim had carried me, gently, carefully, like I was made of something rare. He never mentioned it. Neither did I. But that morning I buttoned my blouse slower than usual. And my hands trembled just slightly. The press began to speculate. Heiress Astor's sudden marriage to tech tycoon raises eyebrows. Is it strategic, or scandalous? Sources say Cavendish was left reeling. I said nothing. But Selim's team worked overtime, clean press releases, staged photos, a sleek interview in which he said without blinking, "Lena Blackwood is exactly the kind of woman I admire." Composed. Private. "It's not love at first sight then?" the journalist asked. He paused. Then, "No. Something more useful. Mutual respect." I saw the clip online a few days later. And my throat closed. Because I knew what that sentence really meant in Selim's language. I protect what I respect. And I respected him too. That was new. I started noticing the little things. He never interrupted me when I spoke, even if I stumbled. He never corrected me in public, even if I was wrong. He always remembered how I took my coffee but never commented when I changed it. He didn't treat me like glass. He treated me like steel. One night we hosted a private dinner for 3 international defense executives. All men, all older, all with the kind of generational arrogance that sees women as ornaments. I walked into the room in a high-necked black dress and took my seat beside Selim. The men barely glanced at me. Until Selim said in his glacial, bored tone, "I trust Lena's judgment on this more than mine." They blinked. Then laughed. Until I started talking. By the end of the evening 2 of them were asking me for meetings. The third, the smirking one, tried to corner me afterward. I didn't get a chance to respond. Because Selim was already behind him. His voice didn't rise. His tone didn't shift. But the man backed away as if the devil had whispered in his ear. And Selim simply offered me his arm, cool as winter. "Ready to go?" "Always." We returned home in silence. But halfway up the stairs I turned and asked, "You didn't have to do that." He looked at me. "Did what?" "Intimidate him." Selim's voice was quiet. "He touched what doesn't belong to him. And what do I belong to?" He stared for a moment. Then said, "You don't belong to anyone. But you stand with me. And I don't share what's mine, alliance or otherwise." Something tightened in my chest. He wasn't romantic. He never even flirted. But when Selim Blackwood claimed something, he protected it like an empire. Rafe tried again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a voice note sent through an old friend, my college roommate who didn't know better. "Lena," his voice said. "I know you've moved on. But I have to say it. I meant some of it. You know I did. I lost myself. I never wanted to lose you. Can we at least talk?" I played it once. Then I sent a text back to my friend. "Next time he uses you, send him an invoice." Then I blocked her. Harsh. Maybe. But I'd learned something in my time with Selim. Kindness doesn't protect you. Distance does. We traveled to Zurich 2 weeks later. An investment summit. Cold skies. Colder handshakes. The night before I stood at the hotel window in a silk robe, watching the city light blink like low stars. Selim walked in behind me. "You're nervous." "No," I said. "I'm aware." He didn't ask what I meant. But I turned to him anyway. "I was supposed to marry someone else," I said. "A man who knew all the right words but none of the right boundaries." "I know," he replied. "You do. I make it a point to know the men who try to destroy what's mine." I stared at him. "You keep saying that." "What?" "That I'm yours." He stepped closer. "So deny it." I didn't. Couldn't. Not because he owned me. But because for the first time in my life I felt kept. Not in a cage. In a kingdom. One I helped build. That night we slept in the same bed. Just warmth. His arm around my waist. His breath steady. The first night I'd slept through completely in months. When we returned, Selim handed me a folder. Inside. Deeds. Contracts. Full ownership of the foundation we co-chaired. My name alone. "I thought we were doing this together," I said. He leaned back in his chair. "You were always going to outgrow together. I just wanted to get out of your way." My voice broke slightly. "Why would you do that?" He didn't smile. But his eyes warmed just a fraction. "Because power is only impressive when it's shared willingly." That night I took his hand first. And kissed him second. Because I didn't love him yet. But I trusted him. And that was infinitely harder. The first time I saw Rafe again I didn't plan it. We weren't in a ballroom or a courtroom or any place cinematic. We were in the parking garage of a 5-star hotel in Berlin. And it was raining. Of course it was. I was sliding into the back seat of Selim's black car when I saw him. Leaning against a white Maserati, hood up, dripping arrogance and desperation. The years hadn't softened him. But they'd worn him down. His eyes were a little hollower. His suit didn't fit as well. And when he saw me, something cracked in his perfect posture. "Lena." Just that. Like we were on a first-name basis again. I didn't move. Neither did Selim, who was in the car beside me, watching everything like a hawk with better lawyers. Rafe stepped forward. 5 minutes. I turned to Selim. He didn't blink. "Your call." That's the thing about being with a man who respects you. He doesn't control. He allows. And in allowing, he reminds everyone else they don't get to. I stepped out of the car. Rafe's shoulders dropped with what might have been hope. It was cute. "Make it 3, I said coldly. And don't waste your breath on apologies. I'm allergic to recycled lines. He blinked. You're angry. No. I'm bored. He swallowed. I didn't mean for it to go like that. I was hurting. I was angry. Your brother. Oh, I interrupted, raising a brow. Are we blaming Julian now? My brother ruined your family, so you seduced me for revenge? Cute. If I'd known it was such a therapy cliché, I would have brought tissues. His mouth parted. You think this is a joke? I know it's a tragedy, I said. But not for me. He stared at me like I was an alien. Like I wasn't the girl who used to kiss his neck in parked cars and sneak into his hotel room in heels I couldn't walk in. Because I wasn't. That girl died. And I wasn't mourning her anymore. I just wanted you to know I never meant to fall in love with you, he said finally. I looked at him. And smiled. Of course you didn't. Falling implies effort. You tripped over your ego and mistook it for love. I turned on my heel. Walked back to Selim's car. Didn't look back. That night Selim poured me a drink. Didn't ask what Rafe said. Didn't ask what I felt. Just slid the glass toward me and said, you were gone 7 minutes. I was about to come out. I gave him a wry look. To save me? No, he said calmly. To finish the conversation myself. That made me pause. He wasn't a possessive man. But he was a protective one. And there's a difference. One tries to own you. The other makes sure you never feel owned by anyone again. Over the next few days the press swarmed. Photos of me and Rafe in the same garage. Speculation. Gossip. One particularly bold article read. Love triangle brewing? Lena Astor caught between tech titan and old flame. Selim didn't comment. But that morning my email signature was quietly updated. It no longer read Mrs. Lena Astor Blackwood. It read, Lena Blackwood, Executive Director Blackwood Holdings. A quiet reminder. I didn't belong to a man. I belonged to a name I helped build. My phone lit up with a new number. Walked. But familiar. The text said, so it's really over? I deleted it. No reply. The only thing I sent that day was a memo to Selim's PR team. Release a statement. No triangle. No scandal. Just clarity. They drafted a press quote for me. Read. Closure doesn't always come with kindness. Sometimes it just comes with distance. I wish Rafe Cavendish healing from far, far away. I approved it. And went to lunch with Selim like nothing happened. He didn't say much. But as I stirred my tea he glanced over and said, he's going to try again. Men like him always do. Why? I asked softly. Selim didn't blink. Because they think they're owed a second chance. Even when they spent the first one digging your grave. A week later Rafe leaked photos. Old ones. Us on a rooftop in Florence. Me in his lap. Smiling like I hadn't yet seen the knife. The caption was subtle. Some people forget what love looked like before the lights came on. He didn't tag me. He didn't need to. It went viral anyway. Comments exploded. Speculation returned. I didn't panic. Because 5 minutes after the post, Selim walked into my office, dropped his phone on my desk and said, he's just signed his own irrelevance. What do you mean? I mean, he said, calm and deadly, we just won the bid for the Cavendish Aerospace contract. I blinked. That contract was theirs for 2 decades. Not anymore. How did you? Selim raised an eyebrow. You think I married you without planning how to protect you from ghosts? My breath hitched. Is this revenge? He tilted his head. No. Revenge is personal. This is just business. And good timing. That night I took his hand in bed. Tangled our legs. And whispered, thank you. His voice was low. For what? For not rescuing me. Just standing close enough that I never needed it. He didn't smile. But he kissed my temple. And that was enough. The next morning Rafe's aerospace division folded. The contract loss crippled their Q3 projections. His board revolted. And I got a bouquet of white lilies with a handwritten note. I never knew flowers could look like apologies. Rafe. I sent it back. With a card that read, they don't. And I'm allergic. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But nobody tells you what happens when it burns instead. Slow, quiet, and dangerously satisfying. And no one ever suspects the man behind the coldest stare to be the one lighting the match. Started with a gift. Not from Rafe. From Selim. Delivered in a flat velvet box, wrapped in matte black ribbon with a card that simply read, "Time to be seen." Inside. A necklace. Not diamonds. Not gold. Titanium, elegant, stark and engineered by his in-house design team. A symbol of strength. Not ornament. Understated. Quietly brutal. Just like him. The next day I wore it to a global fintech forum in Zurich. As I stepped onto the stage for a panel, flashbulbs erupted. Not for what I wore. For what I said. Selim sat in the front row. He didn't blink. Didn't nod. But I saw it. The faint lift of his brow when I called out the gender gap in venture capital and then backed it with data he taught me to interpret like a surgeon. I didn't look at him after that. I didn't need to. That evening he poured me a drink in our hotel suite and said casually, "The photos went viral." "Of us." "No," he said. "Of you." Then after a beat. "Your presence makes people uncomfortable, Lena." Good. The world was built for their comfort. I met his gaze. "Are you saying I should weaponize myself?" He didn't flinch. "I'm saying you already are. I'm just showing you how to aim." Rafe tried again. This time publicly. An interview. Pity-drenched, curated heartbreak. "I don't hate Lena. I could never. She was my piece." He even teared up. The comments were split. "He's lying. He's hurting. They belong together." I read none of them. But Selim? He read all of them. And the next morning, our private equity firm announced a hostile takeover of Cavendish's remaining medical tech division. I didn't even know we were considering it. Was this for me? I asked later that night in the study, nursing a glass of brandy. He closed the file he was reading and looked at me. "No." Pause. But I didn't mind the timing. I stared at him. "You're dismantling his world." "No, Lena." He rose, walked to me and placed a hand over mine. "We are." And that's when the ice started to burn. Not because Selim touched me. He didn't have to. Because I was seeing him for what he truly was. Not a safe haven. A fortress. And I was no longer hiding behind its walls. I was guarding them too. That week I received a call from my brother, Julian. He was furious. Not about the past. About the present. "You're destabilizing an entire family line, Lena." "No," I replied. "I'm reclaiming what they tried to steal." "You're starting to sound like your husband. Maybe that's why I respect him." He hesitated. "So this is love now?" I smiled into the silence. "No. This is war. Love just happens to be winning." He hung up. I didn't call back. 2 nights later, Selim handed me a key. It was small. Heavy. Unlabeled. "What's this?" "The server room. Level 3 of the estate. You've earned access." I blinked. "What's in there?" He looked at me deadpan. "Everything we need if this empire burns." I laughed. Until I realized he wasn't joking. And still, he hadn't kissed me. Not properly. There'd been moments. A brush of lips against my temple, a hand at my lower back. But never possession. Never passion. So I asked one night in the middle of our hallway as I blocked his path, "Are you scared of me?" He stopped. "No." "Then why don't you touch me like you want to?" His jaw flexed. Just slightly. Then he stepped close. Inches from my face. His voice dropped to gravel. "Because if I touch you, Lena, I won't stop. And you deserve more than something we can't undo." I whispered, "What if I don't want to undo it?" He didn't answer. But later that night he left a single note on my desk. "When you're ready to stop surviving, I'll be here. Until then, I'll keep the wolves outside your door." The next morning I found out Rafe had filed for bankruptcy protection. His board dissolved. His sister unfollowed me. And his PR team started spinning a redemption arc. I posted a single photo that afternoon. Me standing outside a private school with 2 girls from a scholarship fund Selim and I launched. Caption. Build forward. Don't look back. No hashtags. No tags. And yet, it became one of the most shared images of the year. That night Selim came home late. He looked tired. Defeated almost. I poured him a glass of wine and leaned against the counter. "Bad day." He didn't answer. Just drank. I stepped forward, took the glass from his hand and set it down. "Selim," I said quietly. "You're allowed to fall apart. Just not alone." He didn't say anything. But when I reached for his hand he took mine and didn't let go. And when I leaned up and kissed him, slow, sure, honest, he didn't resist. He kissed me like I was the thing he'd been afraid of loving all this time. And I let him. Because I wasn't surviving anymore. I was choosing. Some men break hearts. Others break patterns. Rafe was the first. Selim was the second. And I was no longer the girl who waited to be chosen. I was the woman they watched. Too late, too far, too much. The first public sighting of Rafe after his company's collapse was almost pitiful. Almost. He was at an art auction in Madrid, all shadows and forced smiles, speaking to investors who weren't listening. I wasn't supposed to be there. Neither was Selim. But fate has a habit of sharpening its teeth in plain sight. I walked in on Selim's arm, in a crimson dress that made heads turn and hearts pause. No one noticed the portfolio I was holding. Except Rafe. He saw us the moment we entered. He saw the way Selim's hand rested on the small of my back. He saw how I laughed, not with effort but ease. He saw that I was untouchable. And I knew it. Rafe approached me during intermission. He waited until Selim stepped away, 5 feet no more, to speak with an official. "You're really going to pretend I don't exist now?" he asked. I turned. Your confusing silence with erasure. His jaw clenched. "You don't miss me?" I laughed softly. "I don't even miss the version of myself who loved you. Why would I miss the man who broke her?" He looked tired. Older. But not wiser. "You're not the same," he said. "No," I agreed. "I'm better. You used to be kind. I used to be gullible." He stepped closer. "Do you love him? Are you asking because you care?" I murmured. "Or because you need to believe I don't?" That shut him up. For the first time in years, Rafe had no comeback. No smirk. Just silence. And in that silence I felt nothing. Not victory. Not vengeance. Just closure. Selim didn't ask what was said. He never did. But that night when we returned to our suite he handed me a pen. "A new contract?" I asked. "No," he replied. "Your name." I opened the envelope. Inside, ownership transfer documents. My name listed as chairwoman of a new joint firm. Fully independent, publicly branded. Blackwood Astor Group. "You're giving me half," I said slowly. "I'm giving you everything that's already yours," he replied. My voice cracked. "Why now?" He didn't smile. Just looked at me, calm and clear. "Because you walked into that room tonight and even your past couldn't touch you. That deserves more than applause. It deserves power." The next morning, Rafe leaked our old love letters to a tabloid. Handwritten. Dated. Sentimental. Desperate. He wanted the world to believe we were a tragedy, that I'd moved on too fast. That I was heartless. It backfired. The media wasn't kind. Cavendish breaks privacy to win back Astor. She replies with silence. Rafe weaponizes nostalgia. Lena wields legacy. I didn't flinch. I didn't post. I didn't even call my PR team. Selim handled it with one press statement, signed from our joint office. What was written in the past is irrelevant when the woman writing her future has already outgrown it. That night I found a new necklace on my pillow. Simple. Black pearl. Engraved inside. Tempest quieted. I held it between my fingers and turned to Selim. "You really think the storm's over?" He stepped behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "No," he said, pressing his lips to my shoulder. "But I think it finally knows you're not afraid of thunder." And maybe that was the difference. With Rafe I was always running. With Selim I stood still, and the world shifted around me. The man I married had never once begged. Not for sympathy. Not for attention. Not even for forgiveness. Selim Blackwood did not plead. He offered. He promised. He warned. But he never begged. Which made the night I broke down in front of him all the more disorienting. Because he didn't tell me to be strong. He simply held my silence like it was sacred. It began with my brother. Julian's voice was sharp on the phone. "The Astor seat is opening on the Global Ethics Council. You're expected to apply." Expected. As if my entire life were still written in someone else's font. I didn't say no. But I didn't say yes either. And I didn't tell Selim. Not until he found the folder in the trash, shredded. He raised an eyebrow. "Care to explain?" I stared at the fireplace. "I didn't want it." "That's obvious." He paused. Then quietly, Why did you shred it instead of just saying no? My voice cracked. Because I don't want to explain myself to anyone anymore. Not them. Not the world. Not even you. He walked to me. Kneeled. Not out of submission but solidarity. Then don't, he said. Don't explain. Just decide. I looked at him. And for the first time in years, I felt free of expectation. The next morning a press release dropped. Lena Blackwood declines Astor Council seat. I have my own legacy to build. I hadn't written it. Selim had. When I asked him how he'd known, he replied, because you shredded the folder like it insulted your soul. Witty. Accurate. I kissed him for that. We didn't talk about love. Not yet. But we talked about everything else. Books. Boardroom betrayals. Childhood trauma disguised as etiquette. He told me about his mother, sharp-tongued, surgical with disappointment. His father, a ghost with a trust fund. No wonder you don't believe in vulnerability, I said once. He replied, I believe in selective exposure. That's not very romantic. It's very safe. I tilted my head. And me? Am I part of your safety net or your threat detection? He smiled then, one of those rare bone-deep smirks. You're the only variable I stopped trying to calculate. Then came the gala. Black tie. Old money. Soft lighting and sharper smiles. The first time I saw Rafe in a tux since everything fell apart. Haunted. Not tragic. Just tired. He spotted me across the room. I didn't flinch. But Selim did reach for my hand under the table, casually like he was brushing crumbs off a napkin. When Rafe finally approached, Selim stood. Come. Unbothered. Gentlemen, Rafe said to the group. Selim replied, no gentlemen here. Just husbands. The room chuckled. But Rafe didn't laugh. He looked at me instead. Can we talk? Just 2 minutes. Selim didn't speak. He looked at me. And that choice, meant more than anything Rafe had ever said. I nodded. 2 minutes. Public space. We stepped aside. Rafe's voice was low. You really love him? I didn't answer right away. Then, I don't measure love the way you do. And how's that? Love to me isn't about butterflies or heat or obsession. I looked across the room at Selim, who was calmly sipping his drink, ignoring us entirely. It's about safety. Growth. Silence that doesn't strangle. Power that doesn't pretend. Rafe's voice broke. You never looked at me like that. I was never seen like that, I replied. He left before dessert. I didn't notice. Because Selim leaned over after the main course and murmured. I like the way you dismantle people without raising your voice. I learned from you. He paused. I never dismantled you. I smiled. No. You're the first man who made sure I knew where the tools were. That night I slipped into his study wearing nothing but one of his shirts. He didn't look up from his laptop. But his voice was low. Something you need? I climbed into his lap, tilted his chin up. Yes. I need to stop pretending this marriage is just a shield. His hands gripped my thighs. Then don't. And when he kissed me, finally, truly, thoroughly, it wasn't an apology or a promise. It was recognition. The next morning my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He's going to ruin you. I smiled. And replied. He's already rebuilt me. There's a particular kind of betrayal that only family can deliver. The kind that's not loud. Not violent. But woven into expectation. Drenched in silence. Just loud enough to feel like guilt and just quiet enough to pass as duty. I knew that kind. Intimately. And it wore my last name. Julian Astor, golden boy, future prime minister, my brilliant, carefully bred older brother, had always believed in 2 things. 1. That Astors were born to lead. 2. That I, as the younger sister, existed to support him while he did. He called it family loyalty. I called it erasure in a tailored suit. For most of my life I accepted it. Until Selim. Until I learned that love didn't have to mean shrinking to fit someone else's spotlight. So when Julian summoned me to London for a private meeting, I knew what was coming. I dressed for war. Cream blouse. Tailored navy pants. Simple heels. And the necklace Selim gave me, the titanium one. Armor disguised as elegance. We met in a private club in Mayfair, full of polished wood and the smell of money. He was already seated. Lena, he said, standing with a polite smile, kissing my cheek like we hadn't once argued for hours over who would give our father's eulogy. Julian. He gestured to the chair across from him. Glad you could come. Your assistant sent 3 messages. I assumed it was either this or a hostage negotiation. He smiled thinly. Still sharp. I try. He ordered tea. I declined. Then came the opener. I heard about your foundation's expansion into Eastern Europe. Here we go. Very impressive. Though unconventional. You're drawing media attention. I didn't know visibility was a crime. It isn't, he said carefully. But optics matter, Lena. We're asters. We represent more than ourselves. I tilted my head. Do we? Or do I represent the parts of you that aren't controllable anymore? He exhaled. This marriage to Selim, it's powerful, yes, but reckless. You're tethering our family name to a man the press calls the Ghost Emperor. The world doesn't know what he wants. I smiled. I do. Do you really? Julian leaned forward. You think that man isn't dangerous? I stared back. Come. He's the first man who never used me as a pawn. That makes him the least dangerous person I've ever loved. Julian paused. Then voice lower. You're picking him over your family. No, I said coldly. I'm picking myself. For the first time. That night, Selim and I stood on the balcony of our Geneva home, watching the sky swallow itself whole. I told him everything. What Julian said. What he didn't. He didn't respond immediately. Instead he asked, if it ever comes to a choice, legacy or peace, which do you want? I looked at him. And answered honestly. I want power. But I want it with you. So we changed the game. We rebranded the foundation. Dropped Aster from its name. Formed a new advisory board composed of women under 40, CEOs, lawyers, activists. Our mission, economic liberation, international access, corporate disruption. And just to twist the knife a little deeper, we bought out a media outlet known for kissing Julian's political shoes, and turned it into a watchdog platform. Subtle, but poetic. Julian called again. He didn't ask questions this time. He just said, congratulations. You've declared war. I replied, no, Julian. I won it. Then hung up. That night, Selim didn't say anything. He just watched me walk into the room wearing nothing but one of his black shirts and that titanium necklace. And for the first time he dropped to his knees. Not for worship, but for honor. Because that's what we were now. Not lovers. Not survivors. But equals. If I've learned anything, it's this. They'll let you speak. As long as it's quiet. They'll let you rise. As long as you don't stand taller than them. And they'll let you build. Until your kingdom casts a shadow over theirs. That's when they try to steal it. It began with an email. Harmless looking. Too polite. Too clean. A request for clarification on financial structures within our joint foundation. Forwarded through legal. Then another. This time from the Regulatory Bureau. Anonymous complaint. Audit requested. Subtle. But I wasn't stupid. Neither was Selim. They're trying to cut your legs off, he said, skimming the documents over morning coffee. Right after you outgrew the leash. Who is? Julian. His allies. Anyone who thinks a woman should inherit a title, not a throne. I narrowed my eyes. They want to call me spoiled. They want to call you reckless. The idea that a woman might make a strategic marriage for power instead of love terrifies them. You're disrupting the fairy tale. Then let's rewrite it. We did. Selim called in his internal audit team, terrifying women in pencil skirts and matte lipstick. They didn't ask me to stay out of it. They handed me the gloves. Your foundation. Your sword. We published everything. Expenses. Meetings. Grant approvals. Board diversity. Every number. Every signature. Then we did one better. We issued an open report. Power in transparency. A new standard for global trust foundations. The media lost its mind. Lena Blackwood shuts down audit rumors with ruthless elegance. The Ghost Emperor and his Queen of Glass ceilings. Julian didn't call. But a week later, a former Aster aide leaked a memo showing internal pressure to contain Lena's influence. That night I stood in Selim's office holding the report. He looked up. Well, he asked. I think we just created a new standard, I said. Good, he said, sipping his scotch. Tao, break it. What? Don't just set standards, Lena. Redefine the field. I crossed the room and slid into his lap. You know that's why I married you, right? He smirked. Because I let you destroy things? No. Because you always ask me what I want to destroy. His hand slid under my jaw. And what do you want now? Everything they said I'd never survive without. The next morning, we acquired a boutique firm focused on female-led tech startups in Southeast Asia. By noon my name was trending. By 6 p.m. my former college dean sent me an invitation to speak at commencement. I didn't reply. Instead I added her to our new board. Let her sit beside the woman she once told, "You're too intense for diplomacy." Apparently intense now translated to profitable. Rafe tried once more. A handwritten letter. The seal broken by my assistant, who brought it to me with a grimace. He left it at reception. I skimmed it. It was short. You're not the woman I loved. But I still wish she were happy. R. I folded the letter neatly. Placed it in the shredder. Didn't you want to keep it? My assistant asked. No, I said. She's not here anymore. Later that evening I stood by the window of our private home. Glass walls. Mountains in the distance. Silence where once I'd needed applause. Selim came up behind me. You're quiet. I'm thinking. About how strange it is to win. He tilted his head. Unfamiliar. No, I murmured. Just quieter than I thought it'd be. His hand slid around my waist. That's because the victory you earned isn't loud. It's not. It's permanent. They tried to steal the empire. They tried to twist my love, mute my voice, and redirect my name. But they forgot something. You can only steal something from someone if they still need it. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their legacy. I didn't even need their apology. I was the apology. In silk. With teeth. And a man who didn't save me. Because he knew I was never in danger. Rafe once told me I'd never survive outside the world he built for me. He said it as a warning. But it sounded more like a prayer. And like most prayers whispered by men who only know how to take, it went unanswered. His final act of desperation came on a Wednesday morning. A full-page ad in the Times. Old photo. Just me, laughing, carefree, eyes half-closed in a sunlit Paris cafe. Caption. To the woman I never deserved. If you're still her, I'll wait. I stared at it over breakfast. Black coffee. Toast. No expression. Selim walked in, scanned the page, and said calmly. He really bought print? I smirked. It's giving last season. Tragic. He picked up the newspaper, folded it once, then tossed it in the recycling bin. Just like that. As if Rafe had finally become what he always was, disposable nostalgia. That afternoon I sat on a panel with global heads of state to discuss ethical AI. One of the moderators leaned over before we began. You look radiant. Who styles you? I smiled politely. My husband and I built the empire. The glow came with it. Half the room laughed. The other half shifted in discomfort. As usual, Rafe's company was dismantled within the quarter. His aerospace patents sold to a competitor. His sister stepped down as CFO. And his name? Stripped from 3 out of 5 tech consortiums. No one said it publicly. But behind closed doors we all knew. He was toxic. And I was the antidote. I received one final message. From a new number. No name. Just a voice note. I played it once. You win. Was it all fake? I sat still for a long moment. Then replied with a single text. No. But what came after was better. Blocked the number. Filed the message away in a folder labeled buried. And didn't think of him again. Selim and I flew to Venice the next week. Not for business. Not for PR. Just to be. It was strange at first, to wake up in silk sheets and not feel hunted. To drink espresso slowly. To laugh at nothing. To be touched with no expectations of performance, rescue, or control. One morning I caught him watching me in the mirror. You stare like I'm going somewhere. He walked up behind me, slid his hand around my waist and said, You're the only war I ever wanted to lose. That night we lay in bed, no pretense, no pressure. I asked him, Do you think I've changed? He looked at me for a long time. Then, no. I think you arrived. In the lobby the next day a woman stopped me. Elegant. 60s. Silver hair. Eyes like someone who'd built and burned her own empires. She said, I used to be her. Who? Once. I raised a brow. Did it end well? She smiled faintly. It ended honestly. But no one taught me how to love after. And now. She stepped aside. Let me pass. Now I watch women like you. And I cheer. There's power in being loved by someone who doesn't need to fix you. Power in knowing the man beside you could burn the world down, but chooses instead to light the way. And there's peace in walking away from your past without flinching. No apology. No letters. No final scene. Just silence. And the knowledge that the girl you used to be would look at the woman you are now and say, finally. The funny thing about endings? They rarely arrive with closure. No cinematic goodbyes. No dramatic speeches. Just peace. A quiet day that looks suspiciously like any other, except your chest no longer tightens when a certain name appears in headlines. And your smile isn't something you have to remember to wear. 6 months after the last message I got a call from an old friend. She's pregnant, they said. I blinked. Who? Rafe's sister. Rumor is he's moving abroad. I stirred my tea. That's nice, I replied. Europe needs more cautionary tales. And that was it. No rush of blood. No pang of regret. Just the realization that I had nothing left to prove, and no one left to prove it to. Selim and I hosted our first formal Blackwood Astor Summit that winter. It was flawless. Diplomats. Theos. Disruptors. Not a single whisper about my last name's scandal. Not a single mention of the man who once swore I'd never shine without him. But there was one moment, one single instant, when the past made a ghostly appearance. A journalist asked, Ms. Blackwood, what do you think was the turning point in your story? I smiled. Which one? The story, she clarified. Your rise. Your power. Your marriage. Your legacy. Selim, standing beside me, didn't flinch. Just waited. I looked the journalist dead in the eye and said, the turning point wasn't when I left him. It was when I stopped needing to be understood. The audience went still. And Selim? He reached for my hand, not to guide, not to support, but to anchor. Because that's what we were now. Unshakable. Together. And still wildly, quietly in love. That night we walked through our estate under falling snow. It wasn't a palace. Not a fortress. Not a trophy. It was home. You know, I said, glancing up, if someone told me years ago I'd marry a man more feared than loved, I would have laughed. And now? Selim asked, snowflakes in his hair. Now I'm the one feared, I said, grinning. He kissed the top of my head. Good. I hate sharing the crown. We didn't take anniversary trips. We didn't throw lavish parties. Instead we built. We built scholarships. Investment arms. Defense tech labs with women in lead engineer roles. And on quiet nights we built rituals. He made me coffee every morning. But 1 sugar. Always in silence. Or I left notes in his briefcase before every board meeting. Always handwritten. We never went to bed angry, not because of superstition but because we didn't need to win arguments anymore. We'd already won. On the first anniversary of Rafe's bankruptcy, I received one final envelope. No name. Just a single sentence written on fine paper. If I had known what you would become, I never would have let you go. I showed it to Selim. He read it. Blinked once. Then said, he never had you. Not really. He kissed my wrist. The one with the scar I used to hide. The one that reminded me of everything I'd fought through. And he whispered, he fell in love with your reflection. I fell in love with the fight in your bones. So here's what they don't tell you. When the love was fake, the fire burns fast. But when the love is real, when it's cold and steady, when it doesn't demand proof or tears, it stays. Even in silence. Even in snow. Even in the dark. So if you ever wonder what happened to me, don't look in the tabloids. Look for the woman who walks into the room like she owns her past, and lets it speak for itself. Look for the woman who loved and lost and still came back stronger. Look for the woman standing beside a man who never needed to tame her. Only stand back while she roared. Because I didn't just survive the fire. I named it. And I chose a man who knew how to hold it. Without ever getting burned.